Welcome to the Gateway, your compass to the magical waters of spirit communication. I'm your host, C.L. Thomas, and we're live from United Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans. My guest tonight, Michelle Desrochers, she is a co-host. Well, she's not a co-host with me, but she is a host on another show with United Public Radio. Hi, Strangeness. I'm really excited to have her on. Let me get her on here. Hi, Michelle. I can't hear you.
That's because, I'm producing while I'm working and I muted myself. So, hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? It's been a while since you've been on.
It has. I'm doing well. Thank you. I love coming on with you. We always have such a great time.
Hi, Z Sun Dragon. I think that's who that is.
Yep.
So listen, I have a favor to ask. She says hi to you too, or he. I'm not sure who that is. Um, I'm in Seattle, you guys, and I don't know anything about Seattle. I spent the whole day walking around the marketplace because I'm kind of staying very close to there. If you know of anything haunted or any good locations to go eat, like I'm really hungry. So after this show, I need to go find something to eat. Please put it in the comments if you have any suggestions for me to go or check out. I'll be here until Sunday and I have some downtime and I want to go look at some haunted locations. So, Heidi, if that's your home, please let me know some locations.
CL needs help, Heidi.
Um, so, Michelle, we're going to talk about the similarities between ghosts and aliens.
Yes. Yes. There are many. There are many. And people, excuse me, don't realize this. I did not realize this, of course, until well into adulthood. And when I started interviewing people, kind of like what we're doing here, listening to stories and thinking back to not only my own life, but many of the people that I have helped also who were having experiences on both fronts. So lots to talk about. So where would you like to start?
Gosh, this topic is so deep, it's hard to know. So, there's a huge overlap in the paranormal field right now. You go to a paranormal convention and you can hear a talk about Bigfoot, and then you can hear a paranormal talk, and then you'll hear something about skinwalkers. I feel like it's all overlapping.
Mhm.
Uh, I guess where we start is why are they all so similar? Is it just because they're all unknown?
Well, I believe everything is intertwined. I think we're looking at a multiverse thing. You're getting into quantum things. I mean, stuff that we could do 2 hours and still only be scratching the surface of conversation. But let's start with the basics of paranormal because I think that's extremely popular. That the shows are all over the place. I mean, television is just flooded with it. So is social media, and I think it's because groups are just a little bit easier to start. There's just so many haunted locations throughout the world. It's easy for people to go and explore, as opposed to looking for UFOs. The chances if you've seen one, maybe 50-50 if you're lucky, if you know what you're even looking for. So when we talk about paranormal, for instance, we'll hear things, especially with more malevolent hauntings. We'll hear about foul smells, such as sulfur or excrement, things like that, bright flashes of light just appearing, crackling sounds and banging around. Um, I think with that, right there, the same thing applies to ET, to having alien visitations. If you have the sulfur smell is huge, and bright white flashing lights, huge. I mean, I've had that one personally. Crackling sounds, yes, I've had it. I've had the foul smells throughout my life, but what was I really experiencing? They were definitely crossing over foul smells, even with, cryptids such as Bigfoot. People have reported foul smells. I mean, obviously if you live in the forest, it's going
Mhm.
to be a little bit, going to be a little bit smelly, much like, a lot of wildlife,
It's like
right?
a musty, they say it's like a
Yes,
musty animal smell.
yes, exactly. But we have orbs. Now, orbs can be easily explained away. I don't believe they are the reason that for all the sightings, like dander, moisture, pollen, things of that nature, I don't believe that all orbs are these things, even though many are. Orbs have been seen around homes that have been haunted. They've been seen around Bigfoot. They've been seen around other cryptids. They've been seen around UFO sightings. So there's got to be something to orbs aside from just the obvious. And I just really want to speak more in layman's terms, just for people who are, tuning in and just want the basics. Because believe me, I needed the basics when I started. I grew up around crazy, hardcore activity. Some of it was very malevolent. I've seen spirits my whole life, and I have seen balls of light just floating with my eyes wide open. And I'm thinking, well, that's not dust, pollen, or moisture, because that is a bright, bright ball moving across the room, and it's pitch dark, and I'm in my own home, and I'm seeing things. So there's definitely things to it. I also believe that our upbringing with respects to our faith may have something to do with how we perceive things. Because for myself, I grew up in a Roman Catholic family, not hardcore by any means. It was just, go through the motions of the rites of Catholicism and so on. But I'm not at all practicing. I'll tell you more that I'm a recovering. Like like I don't follow the faith so much. I have my own faith from within, and I believe in a creator, and I believe in many different things, but that's very personal to me. But when you're talking about aliens and you're talking about, let's say, light beings, people might think, oh, those are angels having angelic experiences. And they may be one of the same, they may be two entirely different beings. If you go back into, old scriptures and Bible, there's a lot of UFO stuff in there. And there's a
There is.
lot of talk, right? Right? There is the book of
There is.
Enoch,
Fact, yes.
Ezekiel's will. Right? Enoch's your first alien abductee, technically. Right?
Or
So,
the Epic of Gilgamesh too, if you want to look at it in the literature.
yes,
It's a
that's
really
right.
old film.
That's
But you're
right.
right.
That's right.
I was just looking this up before this show because I wanted to know what the earliest alien um, story was, and I think yours has it beat the biblical one, maybe. I don't know, but there's a Sumerian mythology dating back to the 2100 BC,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they interpret that as a modern. It's in modern day Iraq, but
Mm-hmm.
apparently the Sumerian mythology has extraterrestrial beings in it, or
Mm-hmm.
so that's how they're going to interpret it. So, yeah.
Well, I tend to lean on the possibility that maybe they were from the stars. Excuse me. I think they may have been from the stars. Putting it out there. I think there are many that reside here. We look at ancient cultures, we see out of place artifacts, and we see different hidden sites that are just somehow surfacing. The planet gives up her secrets after a while, and we're looking and finding mines, for example, that are said to be 350 billion years old that look very sophisticated mining. So there's definitely something to it. There are places all over the world. You just look at Göbekli Tepe, which is one of different locations in that area, and one or two of those are even older than Göbekli, which they believed was probably one of the oldest. And it was purposely hidden. Why? Why would the WEF be interested in it?
Right, exactly.
Off limits to archaeological, you know, archaeology. They don't want anybody touching it, and they want to plant a forest over it. Why would they do that?
Yeah, it is a little strange. And then when you look at the history aspects too, all the similarities with the architecture and all these ancient cultures that really had no contact with each other, supposedly. They all
Mm-hmm.
have pyramid structures. They all have kind of like a sphinx structure. They
Mm-hmm.
all have this idea of a king and a god, and something came out of the stars. Even Native American culture Something
Yes,
they have their god that came out of the sky, and in some cases, some of them came out of the ground, but same effect, right? They came from
that's
a
right.
different.
That's
Um,
right. And you see it more and more. Like how many places are you, are you like let's talk about pyramids. How many places are pyramids surfacing? Like they're saying
mhm.
right now, the big talk right now is a lot is coming out of Antarctica. And they were trying to say, no, no, those aren't pyramids. That's a freaking dang pyramid. I know a pyramid when I see one. And so do most people, you know, and they're starting to see other things and photos are surfacing from early expedition in the early 1900s of people who have gone. And there are ancient structures in Antarctica, the same type of structures that you would see throughout many different cultures of the ancient world. So I don't know. Why is everybody running to Antarctica, CL? Why is everybody staking a claim in
I don't
Antarctica?
know. I don't know. I have a lot of friends that's been going there recently too. This cruise thing that everyone's going to.
Yeah,
So,
I
I don't know.
know.
You know what? I hear a lot of people say, "Well, America doesn't have pyramids, or North America." Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
If you go up and down the Mississippi, they may not be as big and pronounced as like the pointy pyramids, but you have the mound people,
Hmm.
and the mounds still exist in their burial grounds, and they're actually pretty large.
They are. I can connect you with somebody who actually researches a lot of those mounds and has great information on them.
I
And
would love
he's
to have them on the show.
okay.
That's
I will do that because he's incredible. We had to do it in two separate shows because he's just so versed. There's just so much information, and that's right here on our side of the world, which is really
it.
cool to hear, all this information. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of similarities, I believe, behind all different areas of high strangeness. All of
So
it.
there is one thing I want to talk about. I know there's a lot of conflict with the Conjuring House, and I don't want to get into any of that. But I do want to talk about Andrea Perron because this is the first time I've ever realized that there was such a similarity between the paranormal world and the alien world. I
Mhm.
met I met her a couple years ago at a Paracon, and right away, you know how friendly she is. She just kind of takes you right in, right?
Mhm.
I had about a 40-minute conversation with her, and she said that I was a star seed, and she was going into all of these different speeches that she gives, presentations that she gives all over America with alien presentations and stuff. And
Mhm.
do you think what she experienced at the Conjuring House may have been visitations?
Um, I have not visited the Conjuring House. I have read about it. I've tried to stay away from films and so on, and I've tried to
Mhm.
just concentrate on the things that she talks about because she lived it, and that is
Yeah.
to me the primary source of who you want to get your information from. And as far as having alien visitations, yes, I believe that she was getting a blend of everything. If this is generational, then chances are it was going on even before. And it's, I can only speak for me as to what my situation was. If there's any similarities, again, you're having to ask yourself which came first. Was it because of my let's say being an experiencer with ET, is that what opened me up and put a target on me for anything else coming through? Do they use the same doorways? Do they like what's the situation? Conjuring house, that's sort of a realm of its own. The place just had so much. And I was almost saddened when I saw it get, sold and purchased and opened up for the type of investigating that I was reading about with respects to, Ouija boards and everything else. I
Mhm.
just think, because having had a haunted house and people wanting to come and stay there and film there. Sometimes, even with the best intentions, people come in and just they don't really know what they're doing or have an understanding of the consequences of some of what they're doing. And it would sometimes upset the spirits in the house for us. And this was just a house that we just sold, to the point where the whole house would go silent for a while. It was just like it was crazy, like a week. There would be nothing. So I'm thinking, God, what is going on? Are they just upset? What is it exactly? And I could tell you that house had all kinds of ET activity as well. So I would be really curious to see if the people who have lived there after Andrea and since the last owners, since they sold, if the current owners are experiencing anything like that as well.
That's interesting. There's other locations too that are like that.
Hmm.
Like the Bellwitch Cave is a good one, where
Hmm.
that's been opened up to a lot of different groups now, and um, you just have so many stories like black figures running around, wolf figures, like wolfmen
Hmm.
looking things. It's just
Hmm.
all over the place. They claim alien activity as well there.
Hmm.
So it's a gimmick, but you're right. When you have a group that's going in just for a Friday night get together investigation, where it's really really don't know what they're doing, they go in there and kind of stir things up and then leave.
Hmm.
It's just a Friday night game, and then the people after are left to clean it up.
And it is really difficult. I find the same thing when I would help families who would reach out to me, who had other people come in. I've often said that, I've always done things a little bit differently. It's always been on a level of making being more humble, making people feel as though, like, I would thank them. Like, "Thank
Mm.
you for entrusting yourself and your family to me, let me carry the weight for a while and see what's going on." And I think sometimes, and only because I know a lot of these groups, they would come in and say, "You're lucky we're here to help you out," and we're going to be, taking over from this point on. And they would be stirring things up to the point where then they leave. They've annoyed a few things because some people do go in and challenge. And I'm not saying my way is the best way. I'm just saying it worked good for me and it worked well for people that I've worked with and assisted, to the point where I have a really long list of thank yous, you know, um, for the assistance. If I can't do it, I'm always happy to find somebody who can. But I didn't go in there per se, not that, early days, because you learn, yeah, we're going to go in here and try to figure out what this is and communicate. But I always tried to do it bearing in mind I was leaving these people behind. After a
Mm.
while, I stopped communicating with. I didn't care what was in the house. If I went in and I had validation from other mediums who came in with me and said, "Okay, no, this is what's going on," and if it matched everything that the family was saying, I would ask for assessments, psychological assessments, sometimes psychiatric assessments. If they were on medications and things like that, I needed permission from their practitioners to work with them, because sometimes it really is just that, and sometimes not. But I had to leave it at that and be like, okay, then I'll figure it out. And that's exactly what you tried to do, right?
So, Michelle,
Yes.
have you had, I'm going to ask this, um, have you yourself had alien experiences?
Lots. Yes. And I think they go back much farther than I thought they did. I remember now always being a stargazer. I remember watching the stars. And again, we grew up north, and I'm going to again age myself, but there were no satellites in the sky. Maybe one couple belonged to the US military, So, but we didn't have, it's like satellites. If you saw something zipping across the night sky, high up, very quietly, chances are you were seeing a craft. And we would see them all the time up there because there was no bright city lights. The core of the city was far from where we were. I grew up in a beautiful valley along big, beautiful lake, very quiet. And I've watched a craft. I watched one night, I spent about 20 minutes watching a craft come down. And then I watched it take off. And the next morning, there were military helicopters, two of them just circling through the whole valley way with the mountains behind. It was like, well, that must have been something. But amidst all of the paranormal activity, which at the time I didn't realize was any kind of connection, as I came into adulthood and started doing researching and working with families, and started realizing at least half of them were having ET experiences as well. Because and when I think back now, even something such as, well, I've become more psychic since having this haunting. Well, yeah, if you live with an entity in the house or a ghost, you're going to start communicating, you're going to start tuning in a little bit. But the same thing is with having alien experiences as well. They want you to develop those abilities. They're going to, some people come back with stories of like, oh God, I'm just like came back full on psychic. So there are a lot of similarities. And if you go back into your time, the faith thing, I don't know, like demonics, could they be reptilians? Like there's a whole mix of it going on. But the one thing a lot of people seem to fall back on is they can both be very intrusive. Malevolent hauntings or attachments could be highly intrusive, obviously, and a lot of it is compared to having alien contact as well. But it's not all like that. Some people have great contact. I don't have a lot of recollection as a child. I know I was looking to the skies for something. I didn't fear any of it. I love spending time by myself, even in the night sky, looking at the stars. I've always been a stargazer. I've always looked for them. So does that tell me it was a horrific experience? Because I could tell you my paranormal experiences were hardcore. And I could tell you now when I made the decision just telepathically to put it out there and say, okay, I think I'm ready. Then it all started up again. And some of the things that I mentioned, like the bright white lights, and I detect an odor that I've never smelled before, but I don't know what the heck it is, but it just seems to be associated whenever they're around. It's not sulfur, it's nothing like that. But knowing what I know now, I realize that the similarities they almost mirror one another.
There's a quick question from the audience. Have you found in your investigations of beings that absolutely hate humans?
I have. I guess if you, it gets tricky. Let's say, what is a demon? Are we going back to religion? Are they ET? Are they a race all of their own, just dimensional? They don't seem to like people very much yet. I have had experiences, when communicating with some through people during investigations where people just seem fully fine with them. Like, well, they don't really bother us. Maybe it's a mindset thing. Maybe it's an oppression thing as well. But as far as people who really hate humans, some people will tell you that reptilians hate humans. Yet I've been corrected on that a few times. That no, they not all hate humans. I think it's like anything: good people, bad people,
Yeah,
right?
good
In
guys, bad
any
guys, right?
right, like yeah. I mean, I think there are humans who hate humans
Hmm.
more than some of these other beings. You have a good ghost with a chip on his back, you know, might not
And
be
so good if you were a jerk in life, you're a jerk now in the afterlife.
right. Yeah, I think it could go either way, really. I do. I fear people more than I fear anything else out in that universe.
Yeah, I do too. It's funny because I travel all over the place all the time, and I love going into the Bell's Witch Caves and places like that. And it's not the ghosts and spirits that scare me. It's running into another human being that might not be so nice out
Right.
there.
Isn't it sad?
Fear. Hmm.
Yeah, it's sad to think that that situation has become a meme,
Yeah.
right? So, you know it's bad when you make a meme about it.
So, Michelle, you have, I want to make sure we get into the story about your sister.
Oh, my sister.
Yeah.
Before my mom passed away in 2023, and when I started having these experiences, and I'm going, okay, like they were becoming more and more to the point where I would always say, CE5 nothing, because save your money. You could do this all on your own. Because I just put it out there, which made me realize I already had a connection because it happened. The experiences started happening again almost immediately. And it's a careful what you wish for thing. If you don't like the intrusion of them just kind of popping in and you don't really know what's happening, then don't do it. If you're willing to go on that journey of discovery, then maybe take that chance. Just know what you're getting into. I didn't, but I'm one of those that throw caution to the wind. But anyway, so I decided on this journey that I would go to my family and ask, had there been any experiences? So I went to my mother because I remember my grandfather having a telescope. I remember him watching the stars. I remember him and my father. My grandparents owned an island on a really huge lake up north, and they would see things all the bloody time up there. Things just ridiculous. Like late at night, you just see things flipping around, and so it wasn't an abnormal thing in my family. But without realizing until later in life that this was a generational thing, I asked her, and she said, "Oh, yes, I've had stories from my grandparents, their parents, great grandparents, my father, and we were not so much that it was a comfort thing. Nobody ever got into that part of it so much with me, but it was a thing." And then she said to me, she goes, "Well, just out of the blue, I almost fell out of my chair." And she said, "Your sister was supposed to be a twin." I'm just like, okay, she's not though. I said, "Did you lose one?" She goes, "Well, losing would be an interesting word." So I'm like, okay, so let's talk about losing. She said, no, she said, like, funny enough, she said, started out with two. But again, she was very logical about it. She says, "Well, technology isn't the same as it is now. Maybe they have thought there were two, but there were two heartbeats. And then all of a sudden there was one heartbeat, and when they checked, and there was only one." So sort of perplexed and looked at her and said, "So what came of it?" She goes, "Well, the doctor really didn't have an answer." That's like, oh. So that to me was a little bit strange. And she started thinking about it more and more before, she passed. And she said, she's very intuitive. And she says, I've always been told through my guides and stuff that it was a little boy. So it's like, okay. So
Hmm.
this was a thing. So I left it alone. Was it? Wasn't it?
That is
I
such a
don't know.
cool story, though, because, you know, you can't just disappear. There's got
No.
to be like a body left over, something. So either two things happen. One, maybe it was like another soul that was helping your sister transition into this world, and
Hmm.
then it was time for them to go, and they just
Hmm.
left. Or maybe they were abducted and went somewhere else.
It's very possible that when she delivered my sister, there was nothing else that came out. So I don't know. Maybe I just have to talk to her now that she's on the other side. Say, okay, hey, about
Yeah,
that twin.
I mean,
Do you see him up there anywhere? What's going on? you know,
is it
um,
possible that she had a visitation and that somehow the baby was telepathically or teleported somewhere else? Is
I
that a
don't
thing?
know. I mean, I don't know. I think you would have to personally just go in there and just like take him out, something. I mean, you hear about it happening, right? You
Right.
hear about it happening. I mean, I've interviewed so many people who have said, "Oh yes, I've had children and they were gone. I have had people say to me that they couldn't have children, and upon being examined by a doctor, it's like, "Oh, you've had children." And they're just like, what? Imagine you go through your whole life thinking you cannot produce a child, only to find out you have produced children upon physical examination. It's like, right? We know it's a thing. So it sort of leads you to like I had Jack Roth on our show, and he's done these documentaries that have been on Netflix and Amazon about one was about people who had lost their children, just giving birth to hybrids and having them taken. It's very emotional for people. He had other people, some of the people were just like, oh no, I get to visit with them whenever they take me. I go and I visit with my children, and other people like, and there was even a man being interviewed. He was so distraught. He's just like the fact that he could be used that way, to create children that he had no contact with. Like so I think there's two sides, definitely to every coin, of course. And yeah, it was very, very interesting to see the documentary, but interesting to get some of the background behind the scenes from Jack coming on and talking about it.
Do you know if your mom was she affected in any way? Like, did she have depression or anything like that afterwards?
Um,
Or did she hide it really well and you just don't
well,
know?
I would have been 7 or 7.5 when she had, um, my sister. Because I still remember her saying, trying to break it to me, "You're going to have a little brother or sister," and I'm been an only child forever, going, "No, I don't want it." I really said that. I was terrible. I was terrible. No,
Put it back. Put it back.
I'm the princess in this bloody house. But anyway, so of course I went on to have two amazing sisters who I'm very close to. But I don't recall, when you go through the whole being tired and pregnancy and babies, and I didn't recognize any of that.
Mhm.
She was always a great mom. She was just wonderful with us. And my dad was one of these guys who just, no, no, nothing's going on. Just the house. It's just nothing. You're just imagining it. But later on in life, he's telling me about all these experiences that he had. I'm just like, thanks for that, making me feel like I was crackers, you know. But yeah,
Back
so
then, though, they didn't really talk about that stuff at all. You
it
know.
just didn't, you just didn't. But I know that when she talked about it in later life, like especially last year before she passed, she really reflected a lot on it. And she said, I just always wondered. And she goes, and I guess I always will. So, it affected her. I think she thought about it quite a bit. I mean, how do you not?
Yeah, exactly.
You
That is
know,
such a strange story. It kind of, I had a guest on last week, and she talked about She believes that she communicates with extraterrestrials, and her theory was that we live in like um, different interdimensionals. So we have different pieces to ourselves that are out there living different lives, pretty much.
hmm
And so when we go to pass on and evolve, that's when all of our pieces come together. But it's so that
that's
we
what they
can learn.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can, like, I'm single, I'm not married. I could probably have like 6 kids or something in this other
And
life.
you might, yeah. Maybe they're visiting you. Maybe you're
Maybe,
visiting
I don't
yourself.
know.
Maybe I know. You get it's hard to fathom all that stuff. I often
It is.
thought about just that when you say that, about other dimensions. Because life could be so hard. And I just look at some people and I'm just like, oh my God, I wonder, if we were, in a different dimension, if if these people could be happy, like what if it was your children or your family and you slip into this other dimension and you're happy and they're all happy? The type of person that I am, I would have to be back here with my family, knowing that they were struggling, because I would have to be here so I could help wherever I could, and I would have
Mhm.
to forfeit all of that. And what brought me to that conclusion was when Joe and I did a show, because we have a show called The Gray Zone Uncensored, and we were exploring time travel and time slips. And this one woman, my heart broke for her. She woke up in the same building, totally dressed in something she didn't go to sleep in. She was in all her decor was different. Her job was different, yet in the same building. She was engaged to a man who had a little girl. She had for 7 years they were engaged, and there was no sign of existence of him, of the little girl. She had a reward out to anyone that could help her get back to her time. Everything was just it was different, but she knew. She goes, this isn't right. This isn't right. Where is my fiance? Where's this little girl, this daughter for me? Like, where is all of this? Where's it gone? And then thought, oh, that would be hard, man. That's something
Wow.
that would be hard. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
I could
So
imagine that.
let me look at these. We have a lot of comments today in the comment section. Let's see. Adrian has a question. It's kind of a little bit off topic. Solemn controlled demons. When someone has a demonic problem, would it be because it was controlled and instructed by another to attack? Or do they work independently?
Well, when it comes to Solomon, a lot of people feel that the ring of Solomon, everything else, his ability to control demons, a lot of it was metaphorical. I mean, could he really do it? I can tell you that through family, just working with people, I know of the demon that outwitted him, sort of thing, ended up through certain family lines and has surfaced going down certain family lines that stem from the possible line of David and Solomon, et cetera, et cetera. So that makes you wonder. Guys got longevity for sure, but um, can they work independently? They are believed, much like angels, to work through some sort of a hierarchy. Um, but I mean, till you get there, nobody really knows. So I know that in working with families through the years, it's very seldom that there's one entity that we were working with. If that's what we were actually, in fact, dealing with, um, they're usually more. It's kind of like having the party house, more of them keep coming along. Get rid of one, you're going to have a few more. And if you can get rid of that or they, then there's always that opportunity, like the others coming in. And I've always said to people, it's been a mindset thing and a lifestyle change and being mindful literally of everything. But you do have the power to have control. I used to be backed up 18 to 24 months and working with people, and I would work with people just online or through the phone and just sort of educating them a little bit. And by the time I was actually free to go and see them, they were like, "Oh no, thanks. You taught us great, and we took care of this." I'm like, "Thank you." So it goes to show you it can be done.
It took me years and years to come to that conclusion,
Right.
actually,
See?
with hauntings and things that I've dealt with it throughout the years.
Right.
Um, we keep mentioning stories of the Bible in relation to aliens and ghosts, and it's so interesting because there is just so much there.
Mhm.
Um, like the Book of Enoch. Do you
Yeah.
have any comment at all or any
Enoch?
theories to the Book of Enoch? And
Yes.
I'm sure it could be like an entire story on its own, or an entire show on its own, but
Yeah. Enoch was your very first alien abductee. And he was, I hate to use it loosely, but I mean, he was a contributor, shall we say, to hybridizing. And it's all there. I mean, you just have to know what you're reading. Right down to the descriptions that he would give, like the angels showed him images, and device through the palm of their hands. To me, is feels a lot like a cell phone would feel, and
Mhm.
seeing images, and having, the glass floors, being able to see down, and he was, seeing the clouds, and I mean, you that there's so much to that. I highly recommend. Yeah, say the favorite biblical tale. There's so much to it, but I think if you technically took the time to read it, especially in this day and age, being more modern, you might actually look at it and go, "Wow." Because I mean, there are paintings out there with
Mm,
UFOs, right? The
there
birth of
is.
Jesus Christ, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Go and look in the sky, you will see UFOs in there. And those goes back to like the 15th, 16th century, right?
And I guess that's why they had such long longevity as well. They were living for like 500, 400 years at least a piece.
Yes. Yes. I know.
But to your point, if you were if you were somebody that lived in the middle of the Southwest and you had never seen a plane before or anything like that, and all of a sudden the space shuttle comes down, I mean, how would you even describe that? You would describe it as like a fiery chariot, just like in the Book of Enoch. So
Exactly. Ezekiel's wheel. It's the same.
yeah.
It's the same. It's the same idea. I mean, there have been stories, even experiments, going into the jungles in the Amazon and coming in with like a plane, like just modern day. And they went back a year later, right? And they could see that the indigenous people there built a replica, made of trees and brush, of what they believed they had seen, of a ship, whatever it is that they saw that came in. They emulated, the ancients emulated what they saw, whether it's on a petroglyph, a hieroglyph, whether it's on a structure itself. You have to really take the time and look at what's there. You're getting into places like down in Peru and South America, where there are tons of stories of reptilians, some of them even assisting the people within these communities because of cataclysm, and they would just take them down because a big catastrophe is about to happen. And they there's I can't remember the town, but there is a statue of a reptilian who took everybody down underground and cared for them, educated them, fed them, everything, until they could, generations would pass and they could come back above ground. But just look at the structures in South America. How much do you see that have a lot of reptilian overtones?
A lot.
A lot.
There's a lot.
Exactly.
Yep. You see
Exactly.
that I want to say like in Egypt too, isn't there in their petroglyph work and stuff, isn't there a man with a alligator's head or something?
Oh, in New Orleans?
On
Yes,
the
it was.
Egyptian stuff. Shoot, I can't remember. Maybe I'm
Oh,
getting
there
off.
is. There is one. Yes, with an alligator head. Yes, yes. But I mean, they were all okay. Let's go back to the Egyptian culture, getting into hybrids. I mean, look at when you're looking at Anubis with a jackal's head and
Mm,
a man's body. They do have alligators. They have the ibis, the bird. Like that is pretty prevalent throughout that culture. So it makes you wonder, what did they see? What were they seeing at that time? Different skins. You can see on some of the hieroglyphs that some of their gods had blue skin or green skin. They were not necessarily, like, they weren't all pale or dark skinned, which is what we would be accustomed to seeing today. They were very bright colors.
it's
I don't
really
know.
interesting. I've seen it in
It's
the
all
with the
there.
Mayans.
I know,
It
right?
yeah, it's man, we could talk about that all night long.
I know. There's a lot of great stuff. There's a lot of great stuff, you know? Man,
um,
oh man. I
I
know.
got to go to the one of the Mayan um, pyramids a couple
Mhm.
years ago down in Mexico, and there was a I don't know why I can't think of the words tonight. I'm so sorry. It's a place where they would go. It's a temple where the woman would go and have their children.
Yes.
And so it's supposed to be a really religious icon place for them. And the woman would go after giving childbirth, they would put their handprints on the walls for the kids. It was, I don't know what the symbolism behind it was, but the prints are in bright blue. It's really interesting how they would do that.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
just reminded me of what you were talking about. But you see like the blue skin people in India, you see it, it's everywhere. It's in India, it's in Asia, it's in the Mayan culture, it's in
Mhm.
Egyptian culture.
Well, look at the green-skinned children that I think what was it in Ireland they were seeing? England, somewhere over there, and and they came into this village, and they were all green skin. These little kids, these two little kids, and then it's like, where does that come from? You know, there's a lot of things out there that I think we need to put into perspective, and we should look to the ancient times and cultures for so much of what was going on because they had it more together than what we have it. You know, because I think there was less conditioning maybe than what we have right now.
Less
Um, eh,
distractions.
yes, and we also have the technology, right? We have AI, we always the digital technology things can be fudged around a lot. But look for a lot of this the basics. Do your homework. Even things like sleep paralysis, something that can be explained away scientifically, also has a lot of undertones as a hag syndrome, you know, and paranormal pushing onto the chest and not being able to move. But the same thing applies, you know, to having alien contact. A lot of people go in and they get that same feeling of pressure on the chest, and we all get that sense that there's something around and you're being watched, yet you're kind of in this crazy state, like almost like it's this crossover phenomenon. You know, it's like you're in this state where you're like, you know, half awake half asleep, and our mind has to just kind of catch up to our eyes, you know. But it's happened to me twice, and you know, having mediumship abilities, I knew I wasn't alone, and I'd never had them my whole life. And then I had them twice within, I would say, a period of about 6 to 8 weeks. And I know what I was doing and what my research was each time. And I also knew in that specific house that was having visits because it was also a two-story house. And 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, the house started just shaking like this, something coming right over it. So I knew then things were going on, but now I'm like, oh man. And of course, you know, the house that we just moved from that we had was just unbelievable. You know, I'm in my bed. I look over, I'm not even asleep, and there's a gray right beside me. And I was like, and the best I could come up with was nope. And I rolled over. I said, nope, I'm not
That's
doing it.
right.
It's just like, nope, nope. But before that happened, probably about a month before, I had a huge bright white light, a big flash of light just shoot through the room and ricochet on one mirror, and it was just gone. And there was nothing that could have caused that light to come in. That house is very high up. There was just no way. No cars, unless you had a helicopter. Just it's just absolutely no way. So those are just some of the experiences. I mean, there's just so many things that I have experienced. So there's a lot of similarities, and I really encourage people to go and do their homework on it when they're having an experience, because it may just clarify what you're actually experiencing. Maybe both.
And it doesn't always have to be scary either. You know, it could be very enlightening. It could be something that could be life changing in some ways.
It was for me. It
Mm-hmm.
was for me. I don't fear it. You know, I be curious to have some of my memories back, you know. But I mean, I like fudging around with communication equipment and stuff. And I one time, while I was testing a new piece of equipment, I said, "Oh, maybe," I was just having a conversation at the same time, saying, "Oh, you know, I should just like get some hypnosis." And then all of a sudden, out through this freaking device was, "No, no, no." Like, shit. Okay, man. Whatever that's about. That was that. So that was a concern. That was a bit of a red flag right there, you know. But then there's that part of me that really I'm not interested in having it done. It's just like, if I can't remember it on my own, I'm just not interested in knowing. There's a reason I'm not supposed to know. Maybe it will damage me. Maybe it will progress me to the point where I'm not ready to be progressed. I know that right now I'm comfortable with the stories and the experiences. I don't like the intrusive part of it, but I find that if I say no, no, go away. I'm not in the mood, or I just don't feel like it, whatever the case may be, that it stops. So that shows me that there's a degree of respect as well. So
Michelle, you're such a good guest. I wish we had 2 hours, but we are just out of time already. I
we
can't
are.
believe it.
Thank you.
Real quick though, I don't even know if you can answer this quickly. What does all this mean?
It means that we are part of something much greater, that we're not the first kick of the can on this planet. We have had so many more before us, and who knows who will be here after us. But have an open mind and realize that we are just a very small grain of sand on a very big beach, at the very least. And don't be afraid to educate yourself and to learn, because it's an incredible experience. We really are just essences having a human experience. Remember who you are, where you came from, and embrace it.
Very well said, Michelle.
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on the Outer Realm every Wednesday and Thursday night. We start technically at 9:10 p.m. Eastern. We have great guests every single week. My little compadre, Amelia Pisano, is usually with me, and we have a lot of fun, a lot of great educational guests. So tune in, or just find me at michelledesrochers.com. Best way to reach out to me. Don't do social media. I can't do it. Can't. It's
Michelle,
too
thank you so much for being on.
pleasure. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
You're listening to The Gateway, your compass through the magical waters of spirit communication, broadcast live from United Public Radio, 107.7 FM New Orleans. Thank you for listening.